All right, Dan Fisher. Hey, buddy.
Yo, what's up, man? What's going on?
That was a glowing introduction, wasn't it? Uh,
Hey,
welcome back, man. Thanks for coming back on the
yeah,
show. Thanks for being here.
yeah. I'm glad I get the back. Yeah, just welcome back. Feels good to be back. Feels good to be
Welcome
back.
back. Welcome back. Welcome back. What is that? Is
Welcome
that?
back,
I know
Cotter, or
that's a
something like
thing.
that.
Welcome
I don't
back,
know.
Cotter. Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what that
yeah.
is. That's what that is. I never actually watched that. I don't think I ever actually saw that show, but
Yeah, me neither. I don't know if that's right. That's my guess.
I was super into like the Nick at Night stuff though back in the day, but like not that. Like it was like I Love Lucy and Happy Days and stuff like that. Like I was like really into that stuff.
That was my wife with Golden Girls and Gilligan's Island, and we did not have TV in our room for like our first year of getting married, or actually
Oh yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah.
So we had a TV but didn't have it hooked up. So she likes to fall asleep to like TV, which I hated. And so I basically watched like every season of Gilligan's Island and Golden Girls because that's what we would always fall asleep to. Um, but we don't do that anymore. So
So
uh,
was it that you hated falling asleep to TV or you hated falling asleep to Golden Girls?
no, I like the Golden Girls. R.I.P. Betty White. Um,
Yeah, man. Oh,
but yeah, it sucks. But but no, I liked dark and quiet, you know. But now I'm used to sound machines because of our kids and stuff like that. So now I can appreciate a good sound machine to cut out all the nonsense noise and all that stuff. But
the like creaking of the house and stuff
yeah,
like that.
right. Yeah, so that not because I'm a pretty light sleeper, so now I don't. So now like it cuts out the random noise, and I'm like, someone's breaking in, so I don't.
That stuff legit used to freak me out when I was a kid. I hated it. I actually I'm working on a book and it's about identity and I had no intention of writing about myself in it, but as I sat down and I started writing, I just like this stuff was coming out. I felt like it was cathartic and therapeutic for me, like the Lord
Yeah,
sometimes I don't know, I noticed that when I sit down to write about something sometimes like a lot of times I think that I've got a certain level of understanding, but then a lot of times the Lord will kind of shift it and make it about me because he wants to bring me to another level of like
yeah,
realization or healing or whatever it is.
yeah.
And so I started writing about this. I ended up with like several pages about my childhood and how like I was when I was a kid, I would literally if if I didn't fall asleep before the rest of the house or if I woke up in the middle of the night, which did happen a lot, I was done. Like I would not go back to sleep until the sun started to come up. There was just
What?
something like there was so much fear in
Yeah,
me, and like every little noise I would hear, and I would like get up and I would like go and I like go downstairs and make sure the doors were still locked. Like I was like psycho. Like I
yeah. Like
and
every sound was a burglar.
yeah, everything, dude. And I think it was connected like when I got into later on. I mean, I was definitely in high school when it started, but actually maybe it started before that, but it got like worse over time. I got like this OCD sort of a thing. I don't know if I even talked to you about that back then. I probably tried not to, but just like this OCD thing about like I was like very germophobic and like constantly washing my hands to the point that like my knuckles would be like bloody in the winter because it'd be cold outside and they'd get like
Yeah, I
chapped
remember that.
and,
Yeah.
and and so yeah, it was like that kind of stuff. I used to sleep with it was like this weird, not cream. It was like this weird sort of jelly type stuff that I put on my hands and I have to wear socks on
But
my hands.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, my
but
son does that. He
anyway,
has gloves. My son wears gloves. The dry skin, the seasonal dry skin.
yeah,
That's why
dude.
I
But
don't
like
wash my
it
hands, man. I just don't. I don't want the
ever,
dry skin. I don't want the dry
ever
skin. Yeah.
once a week when I take a shower, they get washed. But no, but it's like I don't know. I there was just like so much fear in me that
Hmm.
I just had. I don't even know really where it came from. I
It
just
was that the
it
time
just
you were
manifested
like,
in different areas.
but wasn't that around the time you were like really into witchcraft and stuff like that?
Oh, you think that could be connected?
I don't know. I could. Might have been it.
That was a joke, by the way.
It was. Yeah. He is
Or
never
was
was
it?
or has or currently is into witchcraft.
Or am I?
As far as I know. I'm just a
Yeah.
podcast
No, I'm
guest.
not. I'm
I don't
not.
really know.
But yeah, man, thanks for being a podcast guest for the second time,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you. And for anybody that does not know Dan Fisher, just would you just remind us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I am a lifelong friend of Duke Lamastra. That's my number one
That's it. That's all
credential,
you need to know.
and
It's my
yeah,
number one. That's on my
yeah,
my name tag, my name badge.
right. Yeah, you
All
can't
access
see it. It's
pass
the bottom part of my
to
shirt.
the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. But yeah. So I'm a youth pastor, youth and associate pastor in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and I've been on staff here 13 years, 13 and a half years. Um, on staff at the church I grew up in, and went to Valley Forge, University of Valley Forge, for youth ministry, and found myself back in New Jersey, and didn't know what God had next, and He saw fit to have me back at the church I grew up in, the same church that Duke and I were in kids' church together and youth group together, and I have the honor of being able to work with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and the rest of the church also, obviously, but most closely with our teenagers. And so it's pretty great. It's been 13 years, like I said, and then married. Me and my wife have been married 1 year less than that, so we're coming up on. Is it coming up on? I guess I would be coming up on 13 then. So I started, and then we got married the next year. But yeah, so and we've got two kids. My son Jack is 8, going to be 9 soon, and my daughter Sadie is 3. And it's been good, man. It's been a blessing for sure. So doing
That's
ministry in New
awesome.
Jersey, yeah.
Yeah, dude. So have you guys gotten any snow yet? Yeah, you have, because I've seen
Yeah.
pictures.
My instinct is to like move the camera out the window, out the window. But yeah, I'm looking at snow right now out there. We just got a few inches the other day, and nothing crazy. I know you're in Bama, so I don't even know if it actually gets like. I heard you say earlier that it was cold. I don't know what that means to you, but we were in.
It's all relative, right?
Yeah,
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 it can, like, every once in a while it'll get into like the 20s, like maybe a couple days out of the year. But cold here would be, probably like 40-ish is what I would, that's probably, it was, I think, in the 40s this morning. But like,
yeah.
it's cold. Like even my car, like my car doesn't like it. Whenever it's cold out like that, the temperature drops a little bit. I think my car is just used to warm weather. I don't know if cars get used to things or not.
I don't know.
But if they do, I'm just going with that. But yeah, it's my car does not function the same when it's cold out.
Yeah, I think that's
But
a normal
anyway,
thing. But yeah, we hit single digits the other day. The wind chill. I think it was like 8 degrees. I think a couple nights ago.
dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get snow, quote unquote, every, I don't know, maybe they used to tell me every like 7 to 10 years or so there'd be snow. But there's been snow, I think, 3 times since I've lived here. No, maybe only
Oh,
twice. At
that's
least
crazy.
twice, but maybe 3 times. There's been snow here since I've been here, which is 10 years. So,
That's crazy.
yeah,
I can't relate, man. I've
very little
been
amounts.
been Jersey forever, so that's all I know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, it's been good. It's been a relatively mild. I don't like we've had a few mild winters overall, but we'll get like one big storm. We'll get like 10 inches or like a foot of snow or something like that. So um, so far so good. It was like the first snow of the 2022, but we didn't get anything before the new year. But my son is pumped about it. He wants as much snow as possible, and he doesn't understand that I don't love it as much as he does. Because I'm like, yeah, but I got to
I
shovel.
miss
He's like,
that,
I'll
man.
shovel it too. So it's fun for him to shovel still.
Right.
Um, so, but he's
Yeah.
good. He's always good to help, and he's down. So we shovel and then we play, and it's always fun. But yeah, man, good old Jersey, our
Awesome.
temperate climates.
So 13 years as a youth pastor.
Yeah.
So you basically started out youth pastoring millennials, and now you're basically youth pastoring the Gen Z, right?
Gen Z, we're looking more like whatever the next one is, Alpha is
Yeah,
really what we're
kind of
looking at
like on
now.
the it's in the transition phases already, right? That's crazy. Oh, so you didn't even hang on. I'm trying to think timeline here. because
I
you
don't
and
know
I
the
are
dates.
technically we're like the elder version of the millennials.
Right, yeah.
We're like
Yeah.
on the yeah.
I
We
forget
kind
where
of
the
barely
actual
caught that
depend
wave.
on where you depending on where you look, the ages are different, like the
Yeah.
brackets of time and where that all is. So yeah, depending on where I look, I've seen myself as like an elder um millennial. Uh and then yeah, Gen Z was after that. And if you're looking now into the next one, like I don't know if it's literally broken down by decade or not. Um but yeah, no, I think we were technically millennials, but when I first started, I had my younger brother is 6 years younger than me. And so he was a
Right.
senior in high school when I started in youth ministry. So I had my younger brother. I was his youth pastor for just that year. Um, and yeah, that was a long time ago. So I
That's
guess if
cool.
you're doing anything for over 10 years, like I don't know if you automatically get bumped to like, okay, I've pastored a whole generation or something like that. I don't really know the timeline. But but yeah, so I think, I mean, people really get, sometimes they do really get into the nitty-gritty and nitpick like some of the differences from one generation to the next, and there
Mhm.
definitely is. But at the same time, I think that they're more, it's not that they're subtle because they can be pretty obvious, some of the differences, but overall, as far as like life and connection with God, and I think that all that stuff tends, the core of it tends to pretty much stay the same.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you just kind of change how you do it a little bit. Um, because sometimes people will say, well, okay, well, here's this generation, and here's how they learn,
Right.
here's that how they connect, here how technology has affected them, and blah blah blah. And if you like bend over backwards to try to like, I think it just becomes enabling. You know what I mean? I think you can like
Mm.
do everything you can to, I have to speak their language entirely and do everything the way they do things. And I just don't think that that's usually all that necessary. I think there's always like
Yeah.
some middle grounds. Um, because I'm
Yeah,
like,
well,
I'm
that
not
was
gonna.
exactly why I brought it up. I wanted to ask you that question specifically. Like first of all, have you noticed much of a difference? And then what has there been in actual, I don't know, just sort of what your approach has been in terms of pastoring and mentoring and shepherding and stuff like that. Like in terms of and that was sort of my assumption that maybe you didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on it, because it does seem that way to me sometimes, that we do make a big emphasis on these kinds of things, but when it comes to the core essentials, I think a lot of times those things tend to stay the same. I mean, trends, there's trends and things change and seasons change, and there is some for sure validity in adjusting the way that we reach people. I mean, even just like as far as that old saying, if they don't learn the way you teach, teach the way they learn, kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
wanting to meet people where they're at. Has there been any kind of a concerted effort on a larger scale? Because I know, as like part of the Assemblies of God and stuff like that, you have youth pastor gatherings and stuff like that. Has there been any kind of a focus to say, to sort of address like the differences in the needs or the differences in how you reach this generation as opposed to the previous generation or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think like one of the things that I feel like is always talked about is people talk about like attention spans. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to teach in like tiny clips, like getting scrolled through TikTok or whatever. Like they just want to like swipe me away
Like
or something like that.
60
Um,
seconds.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then like new topic. Um, but I would say that just for anybody, like because not just them, but everybody. Like if there's people that are scrolling through Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever, and they're going from one thing to the next all the time, I would say that that isn't just a young person's problem. I think that that can affect everybody's attention span a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's always been a factor is with any teenager, is that like if you're boring, you're boring, and it doesn't matter how much you try to mix it up. But I think that like because I can think of a youth event a few years ago, and it was a youth pastor friend that was a speaker, um, and I just really liked his approach, and it had less to do with I can only speak for, because that was the thing. People were like, "Oh, if you're dealing with millennials, you should only be preaching for this many minutes." And
Right.
I never really connected. I never really fully agreed with that. I think that there has to be a sensitivity to attention span and things like that. But what I noticed was when I look around and I look at entertainment, not that we're trying to be entertainment, but when you look at entertainment or when you look at school, um, like they might have classes for 40 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and that's not even block scheduling. Block scheduling is twice as long as that. And so they might have a 40-minute class, or they might watch a two and a
True.
half hour Marvel movie or something.
True.
Um, I know I'm not a Marvel movie. I know that I'm not going to compete with Marvel, but I know it's less about like uh, attention span, and it's more
Mm-hmm.
about like engagement, you know. And so, like, if something's engaging, even if you say you have a short attention span, if something's engaging, it's going to keep your attention or
Mm.
reconnecting with your attention and your focus. And so, sometimes that's mixing things up a little bit. Sometimes that might be like for me. I've always liked asking questions and having them answer in the middle. Like I don't want to talk straight for too long because I know the longer I talk, I'll start to lose them. And I know that I can have the tendency to go on.
Yeah.
So, but I also, if I'm honest, I notice myself, I don't, it's not the same dynamic when I preach on like a Sunday morning or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like I'm able to preach a different way. I think that I tend to me personally, I tend to default a little bit more lecture style, I guess. Like as far as talking at length, I'm not super. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. My point is, I context does make a
I
difference.
spaced out. What happened?
Yeah, well, my attention span is terrible. I don't know. Um,
You're like, I just got bored with what I was saying.
no, I lost my point. So it's I would say that like context makes a difference, and so
Yeah. Yeah. For
even
sure.
within the teams, like we have a Friday night that's our main night, but we also have a Wednesday where it's more small group style and conversational, and so you're engaging them in a completely different way. Um,
Yeah.
so one of the things that I've seen as the differences between specifically if you're focusing on Gen Z is um, people use the phrase like publishing, like creating content. The with the advent of YouTube and accessibility of people being able to just
Mm-hmm.
create YouTube channels and TikTok accounts or whatever, um, the accessibility to be able to create content and how easy that is, and just make something and upload it. Uh, there's a different element to that. So it's not just engaging and like
Yeah.
conversational,
Yeah.
but like I want to do something, I want to say something, I want to create something. And so that is a little bit that's been one of the bigger differences I think in the last 5+ years, I guess, is trying to for as far as engagement goes to put them on the spot a little bit sometimes and say like, hey, like what do you
Mm-hmm.
think about this? um, I remember being younger and we didn't always like being put on the spot because you wanted time to like think and have a good answer. um, but ironically, like I feel like, and I can relate with this a little bit, sometimes I don't always know exactly what I feel about something until I start to verbalize it. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm realizing what my actual opinion
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this
That's true.
is. um, so I think that applies to the younger generation too, is they start talking, and some like to talk, some don't, but it gets them talking and moving. But so that's but not too much of that has changed. There's always going to be the kid that doesn't want to be put on the spot, the person that is like real anxious about any kind of public speaking. um, but creating an environment where you can do stuff, or make them break up into smaller groups because they can, it doesn't have to be me getting one answer over here, one answer over there. It's like
Yeah.
pockets of kids, and they can be talking and coming up with their own, and they own it a little bit. So I think that does change for
Yeah.
context, but I think it's been mostly true for a long time with teens. Like they want to be a part of something.
Well, I think it's cool that you do it that way. I think that that's a really cool dynamic, especially when I mean, I don't know. It seems like more and more it's becoming possible to not engage in long form sort of conversations with people. And the way that a lot of people, I mean, not just like the younger generation, but even the older generation now too, we've gotten so used to communicating by text and things like that, that we
Hmm.
probably communicate more, like with most, if you think about it, probably most of the people in your life, you probably communicate with them more through like text and messages and stuff like that than you do verbally, or at least like face to face, you know what I
Yeah, I can
mean?
see that.
And so I feel like there's probably some like real validity to not just like, oh well, let's just do this the way that they've always, the way that everyone else is, like, let's engage them the way that everyone else in the world is engaging them. And of
Yeah.
course, with the exception of school, like you said, you still have, there's still classes, although some people are doing virtual classes now and stuff like that too. But that's another issue. But like, I feel like there's probably some real validity to like let's not just focus on engaging them the way that society says that they have to be engaged, because this is how they are, and this is how they grew up, and this is the way their mind works, and it's different. There, like, I feel like when you sort of, you create those environments for there to be a sort of different type of engagement, I think you can actually like realize like, oh well, maybe they actually want that. Like maybe there's something inside them that would say like I actually want that. I want people to call me to a higher standard. I want people to call me to another level, or I want the conversation to unfold differently and not just
Hmm.
be this sort of like very easy way of getting information. Like what you said about putting people on the spot sometimes and asking questions and stuff like that. I think that like it's just so important, engaging with people. And so I don't know, but yeah, but I'm with you. Like I feel like there's definitely validity to both sides, like validity to,
Hmm.
okay, like let's see if we need to adjust the way that we engage people to an extent, but let's not like recater everything to try to fit into some specific kind of a mold, because maybe that's not going to be the most effective thing in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I agree. And so, and that's always been my tension with it, is that I'm like, I don't want to like bend over, like I'm not trying to sound lazy, but like I don't want to bend over backwards to coddle what
Hmm.
someone that wrote a book said. This is how they learn. You got to, because
Hmm.
it's
Right.
kind of relative. It's relative to, and to your point, yeah, I think that there's got to be a little bit like the way school is, the way college might be for them, the way that their place of employment might be in the future. Um, if I'm doing everything to cater to them and what and their preferences are, the reality is it's going to probably be more difficult for them later on in life.
Mm.
But I can't say that's not like my main motivation. But
Sure.
to what I was saying earlier is a friend of mine that was leading a winter retreat that we had, and I just really liked how he broke things up, and he would pose a question, and he would put like a certain amount of time on the clock and be like, all right, answer this question, like break up into a group, just whoever's around you. Try to do it fast so that they didn't get too in their head about like, well, who's in my group and who's not. And you just try to get them to say something, and you weren't going to force them all to answer. Sometimes it's, so you're putting them on the spot a little bit and like mixing it up, but it's not like I'm calling one person out in the crowd and saying, hey, what do you
Mm.
think about this?
Yeah.
And then they had the ability to share if they wanted to share. It wasn't like a group project in school where like everyone has to have a secretary and a speaker and a representative. And but either way, there's more to it. But overall, I think that was one of the ways where I could tell that he was being very intentional about how he engaged that generation based on research and different things like that. And I saw it work really well. And he had a couple hundred teenagers, and he kept their focus really well, and they got things out of it. And because they were um, active participants, like I thought it went really well. But at the same time, like the next year, there was a guy that was a little, I guess he was probably a little bit older. He was maybe like 15 years older than me. And he was just a great evangelist style preacher. And he was very engaging, but in a completely different way. And just the same, the Holy Spirit used what he said to stick out to them. and they weren't walking away saying, okay, but he didn't do this, or he didn't ask this
Yeah.
question, or he
Mhm.
wasn't doing this style, or he didn't have a video, or he didn't whatever. He just preached for a
Yeah.
while and had an altar call, and it was
Yeah.
still engaging enough. You know what I mean? And so, all that to say, long story short, I think that there's always going to be ways that we can make efforts to be more engaging and keep focus and get people involved. But sometimes it depends. So sometimes I really lean into the group thing, but I don't do group questions every time, and I don't always pose questions to the audience every time. And then I honestly, when I preach on a Sunday with the adult service, I don't have that ability really. So
Sure.
it's more like I'm just going to preach for 30-ish minutes, 30 plus. Um, and that's more just straight talking. So it's definitely interesting. I think that, and if anything like breaks it up, I think that helps people like that variety. But I think that
Yeah. Mhm.
I think that has I think that has I think that has more to do with just technology and entertainment across the board, not just
Right.
generationally. I think it affects everybody. And because I found myself the other night, I'm like, so there's something that I like want to watch, or like I might put something on the TV, but then I find like my phone in my hand, and I'm like, I'm more engaged with what's going on, like as I scroll away on my phone than what's like on the TV. Um, to the point that I'm like, I'll pause whatever, and I'm like, I could have finished that episode, but instead I just spent 20 minutes on a social media app or something like that.
Bro, it's so crazy how quick the time just like flies away from you, how distracted. I mean, we know like I mean these things are designed to be addictive. They're designed to keep you
Yeah.
there and to keep your attention. So like they know
Hmm.
like the Facebook
For sure.
algorithm or the TikTok algorithm like they know what you want to see. So
Yeah.
they're going to like keep it on there. And like I do it all the time as an adult and like I know these things like I've seen the social dilemma, like I've seen these different things and like I know what they're doing to me, but still like I'll sit there with my phone and like I'll be scrolling on Facebook and it's just so easy. It's just a never ending. It's just so easy. It's just the finger, just swiping my finger
Yeah.
and how I'll just be like okay, that's enough. And it's just like well one one more little scroll, like
Yeah.
one more little flick, one more and then another thing kind of catches my attention and I'm just like oh, okay, like just a little bit more. And yeah, you can burn through 15 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever
Right.
in like a really,
Easily.
quick amount of time
Easily.
and without even really because it's just so kind of like mindless, you don't have to really think about it. And there is this thing where, we can if we're not careful. And I was just having a conversation. I was driving in the car last night and I was literally having this conversation with God where I'm like I can find myself like in this place with a tendency to just kind of always be after entertainment
Oh yeah.
and not leaving enough time to just kind of be and
Mm.
to and I think all of that it can put us in this place where we can miss out on just the simplicity of enjoying God,
Yeah.
and this and it could also be enjoying family or enjoying other things as well. But for me, what I was talking about last night was that aspect of, like I wonder like how often do I miss out on your voice or what you're saying to
Mm.
me just because there's always
The preoccupation.
if I'm not yeah, exactly. Like if I'm not taking the time just to kind of be still
Yeah.
and not have these things, like that's why people now they have like there's like retreat centers that you can go for like a week or a long weekend or something to like detox from
Yeah.
social media and from entertainment and from all these things where it's like yo, like let me get away from this. um and it's so crazy that I don't know, like it really the way that it plays out in our lives, it really mimics addictive behavior.
For
It's like,
sure.
oh well, let me just go grab that. Like I have a moment free. Let me pick up my phone. Just like
Hmm.
things like that, where without even realizing it, yeah, and that's for sure not relegated to the Gen Z or younger
No,
generations. Like it's just
I
kind of
think
we've gotten
yeah.
so used to it. We're almost like what do you call it? Like we have like a symbiotic relationship with technology at this point. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And
It's
it can be a
crazy.
little bit scary. At the very least, it can be dangerous or unhealthy. Um, because so like one of the differences, like so the newer generations coming up, is okay, how early were they handed a screen and how
Yeah.
long have they been dependent on it? So because when I would go to retreats, maybe even just like 5 years ago, they would make the requirement of like, or like they didn't want kids on their phones, blah blah blah. And then the mentality started to shift, being like, well, these kids like to engage and they publish with this, it's like a part of them, it's just, so what if they're using, like what if we can use that as a love of engagement, of like trying to actually leverage technology in that moment or that retreat to say, okay, like whether it's a hashtag or whether it's posting on your stories or whatever, to a way for them to engage with what's happening in the event itself and put it on their social media. Because so many times, like, you might have social media just for entertainment or just for distraction or just for whatever.
Hmm.
And so trying to get kids to like openly maybe express their faith, where maybe they're a little bit more like reserved or quiet or hidden about it. um, it was the same, but it was the same when I was a teenager. We're like, okay, how open am I about the fact that, like, when someone asks me about my weekend, do I tell them about everything except for the fact that I went to church on Friday and youth group and it was a ton of fun, and I tell them about the other things I did? um, so
Right.
similarly, it's like, do you post the random crap that's happening right next to you but you don't ever post about youth
Yeah,
group?
yeah, 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 yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so sometimes we would use that to try to, in a group setting, say, hey, like, engagement, and then try to have them post something. But it's a give and take, because I also do see the benefit of like, hey, what if we were at this winter retreat, and for just for Saturday, for all day Saturday, like, everyone's gonna hand in their phones. um, and what that does, because there's such a dependence on it, and when you've gone most of your life always having that, or even if it's like, well, my parents didn't let me have a phone until I was a teenager, like, first of all, great. But even in just those couple short years, you just get so used to just having, like you said, it's symbiotic, it's an extension of self. um, and like I said, sometimes we can be harder on the younger generation, but then
Yeah.
we like look in the mirror and you're like,
But like
oh,
we
like,
raised them.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
like we're like, oh, this younger generation. Well, you parented them. Like, what are
yeah.
you talking about?
You gave them the tablet. um, and so when they don't, because here's the thing, like, there's certain things that stay the same, like stages of life, whether you have like technology or not. A teenager is going to start to prefer hanging out with their friends more than like connecting with their parents and all that other stuff. And so, like, there's certain stages of life things and independence and all that other stuff and questions and things that happen in life.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the phone isn't really necessarily the issue. It can just maybe exacerbate it a little bit. But
Yep.
so people are like, oh, the phones. I'm like, it's not really about that. But all that to say, I do like the intentionality of, man,
Hmm.
let's be careful. You know what I mean? Like, let's be aware.
Hmm.
Let's
Yeah.
not, because even in myself, I was just talking with my wife about this. Like, our church is doing like a 2 week fast, and I was looking at certain things, and obviously fasting is about food, but there's other things that we can abstain from, or when it just
Hmm.
comes to like wanting to be more focused on God, like, what things can I cut out, like what things are out of balance. And the easiest one to identify was technology or entertainment in general,
Yeah.
because it's like, so the conversation we had was like, all right, maybe here's like one idea was, maybe after bedtime, once we put the kids down, maybe we go like no screens, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because like that's gonna affect our, like, her and I's connection. It's gonna affect, like, okay, like, now we have time and we don't have something readily available to just mindlessly fill that time. And I know at the end of the day, sometimes you just want mindless distraction or entertainment.
Yeah.
But what
There's
would it
just
look?
so much good content out there, man.
There,
It's
there really is.
like I know this is dumb, and the way they have it set, man. Like if if you're binging a show on Netflix, your episode ends, and then it's just 6 seconds later, the next one just automatically starts.
Yeah.
And the good thing about Netflix is that it will eventually, if you don't press anything, it will eventually
You
say
still
like,
there?
"Are you still watching?" I
Yeah.
like that they do that because most of the other, like Hulu, like most of the other apps don't do that.
Yeah.
they'll just keep going. So like if you fall asleep with it, it'll be on all night. At least with Netflix, like if you're not paying attention, you get tired, you fall asleep, couple episodes in, it'll just kind of like time out, which is cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's just designed to just keep going. Like everybody wants you to stay on their platform for as long as possible, and they just make it,
Yeah.
just so it's just so easy. And there's just so much good content, good shows, like good, things like that. You really could just completely occupy your life with it. And obviously
Yeah.
that's not good for anybody.
No, because when a company, like, they're in business, like they're
Oh
in the
yeah. Oh
business
yeah.
of making money, that's their number one thing. So they want to make something that's like, you look at fast food or just food industry in general, like you make it taste good. It doesn't, I don't have to, unless that's my angle, I don't have to promise that it's good for you. I just
Right.
want to keep you coming back for more. And so it's the marketing and it's the taste and it's convenience, and you just keep coming back. And it's up to me, the consumer, to figure out, okay, what kind of balance do I need to have in my life? But we're not the best at that, of
Yeah.
figuring out balance, whether it's with our food or our entertainment. And so for kids, they're even less equipped for that. They've had it for longer in their life at an earlier age, so they might be more dependent. And so that's some of the things that I've seen, is that like the times that we have maybe got taken away, uh, or like recommended or said, hey, we're going to collect all the phones for this event. Um, there can be like real hesitation or anxiety connected to
Hmm.
that, because they're like, it's really an extension of self. And so for them, it might just be that dependence, you know what I mean? It might be addictive, or just reliance upon it. But
Yeah.
then as you get older, it's also those things, but I think it's also not just escaping or not just entertainment. I think it's also like a form of escape or distraction.
For
Um,
sure. For sure.
like, so
Yeah.
it's more escapism than it is just entertain. Yes, it's entertaining, but I can also escape the stresses of life and days and all that other stuff. And
100%.
so that's where it can be overall dangerous and gets put in check. And I like when there's
Yeah.
moments to reset, or to say, okay, we're gonna be device free at a certain time, or while we eat or whatever. Um,
Yeah, because even with things like, like I'll use Spotify and YouTube a lot of times, like in my time with the Lord, because I'll put on worship music or something like that, and it's great, and I love that as a tool. But then every once in a while, because like I'll go out, I don't know, like I'll go out on a run or something like that, and I'll just normally just have my, my what do you, I can't think of what they're called, the things in my ears,
earbuds, yeah.
earbuds. Thank you. uh I always want to call them headphones, but they're not really headphones anymore. Earbuds. So like
Right.
yeah, and so, and even if it's like something good, I'll be listening to a sermon, or I'll be listening to a podcast, or I'll be listening to like some music or whatever it might be. And so like it's good stuff, but then every once in a while I sense this prompting from the Lord, like, hey, like just make it you and me right now. Like
Mm,
leave that
yeah.
home, and let's just have some time where it's just you and me,
Yeah.
and I do think that that's something that we can get so comfortable with the noise. We can get
Hmm.
so comfortable with there always being something. And as you said, I love that you called it escapism, because that's exactly what it is, man. And it's like we could be dealing with something, or going through something, or battling with something, and it's just so easy to like fill that quiet space with something, so that we don't have to process those
Yeah.
thoughts, or we don't have to feel the feelings as much, because we can just kind of hide it, with some kind of content. And
Yeah. It's
yeah.
distraction for sure. I'm super guilty of that. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh yeah. Yeah.
trying to like like, and because you can like, self-awareness doesn't, like, that's step one, you know what I mean? Like, I can be aware of my being unhealthy, but it doesn't mean I still need to be proactive in other ways. So yeah, even recently, so like I'll, like, even like the Bible app or whatever, like, so there's certain kids where I'm like, hey, it's always a balance. It's like, you have the convenience of the Bible in your pocket, like, and you can set reminders, and you can use this as a tool, um, to make it easier to get in the door, you know what I mean, to spending time with God.
Hmm. Yeah.
But then on the flip side, I look at my own self and I'm like, I don't want it to be too easy, because if I'm too reliant on one, a phone in my hands to deliver me content, you know what I mean, then
Yeah.
I might not be, like you said, listening or reading things, or kind of letting God speak through just his word in and of itself, rather than like someone else's devotional content, or worship music like for background to try to fill in some of the silence. Or I'm pretty comfortable with silence and solitude, but at the same time I
Yeah.
can be easily distracted. And if it's not a phone or an like, I could be reading something in my devotions and it sparks a thought, and then I immediately want to like go Google it. You know what I mean? Like, well, what does the Bible think? Like, and that's
Dude.
not
Yeah.
inherently bad, but
Yeah.
I'm like, but what am I actually doing here? Um,
Mm-hmm.
is this is this increasing my is this increasing just my knowledge, or is it increasing like my knowledge and understanding and closeness with Jesus?
Wow.
Um, so like that's where I can get tripped up, is that like my curiosity can take me down a rabbit hole, and I've learned biblical things, but did I actually draw near to Jesus? And it's probably not. Um,
Wow.
so that's a
Man.
challenge for me sometimes. So even when I'm like, you know what, I want to put it's not true anymore. I'm just going to be real. For years, some people are like, oh yeah, my Bible is at the kitchen table when I'm having breakfast or coffee, or it's on my nightstand. I'm like, my Bible for years was in my bathroom. And so for that part of my morning routine, I'm like, that's where I'm like, hey, it's just me and God. And that's just where it was. And that was part of, but it was just my Bible. And so I've even lately, in that same conversation, and our church last night had we had a focused like service, a night service, just about just repentance and focusing on God. And so I feel like more often than not, like for me, technology or my
Mm.
phone is probably
Yeah.
more of a problem than not. It's more of an obstacle. And
Yeah.
so even
Yeah.
just practical morning routine stuff, I'm like, man, I like want an old school alarm clock. You know what I mean? Like I don't like, I want to like set my alarm and put it across the room, and like that alarm, and like my phone is somewhere else. You know what I mean? So that I'm not like waking up to my phone, which is my alarm clock, and then immediately scrolling through whatever.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
really good idea because like I'll grab my phone, yeah, because it is my alarm clock, so it's waking me up, so I have to grab it to shut it off.
right.
And then yeah, like I'll be checking because then there's notifications. So I'm like,
Right,
oh, I have
exactly.
like some
Your
emails and I
phone
have some
knows.
things.
Phone's
So
like, "Oh, you're awake now? Here's this, all the
yeah,
notifications come
let's
in now."
do it. Let's
Yeah.
go. We're going for it. Yeah,
Yep.
and so yeah, like that's definitely like a really good thing that people do. I haven't done it yet. But yeah, like leave your phone on the charger like in the kitchen when you go to
Yeah.
bed and just have like that, that alarm clock. People are like, alarm clock? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is like just a thing, like just a clock? Like it's just literally just a clock.
It's
It's not on
also a
your phone.
radio.
It is a radio because the radio is still a thing,
Yep.
apparently. Um, Apparently a lot of people still listen to the radio, but I think only in their cars.
Yeah, that's like the default when my phone doesn't automatically connect, or if I'm low on data or something like that. I'm like, I guess I'll listen to the radio. But
It's just so like obnoxious how many commercials there are and stuff like that. They haven't
I
figured that out
tend to
yet.
have the
Unless you have
biggest
like satellite
problem.
radio.
Yeah, that's true, which I don't. I tend to have problems with some of the, yes, commercials, but also the TV person or the radio personalities. I won't point any fingers other than a general sense that
Yeah, yeah,
I have a hard time with Christian radio. Uh,
bro.
just in general. So like
Yeah,
I listen to plenty of Christian music, worship music, whatever. But Spotify, again, it's selfish because it's my own tastes and that's how we deal with
yeah,
technology. But sometimes I could listen to something on the radio and be like, oh man, you know what? Like I needed that. Like that was encouraging. Like that was a good song at an appropriate time, and God has used that. But then more often than not, I find myself like after not too long, I'm like, I gotta switch. I gotta turn it.
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
handle it. Um,
Bro, just
so
a personal thing. There are some, and I don't even want to say this because I don't want to be judgmental in any way, and it is just my preference. So this is just my opinion, but
yeah,
like I listen to Christian, like I do, like I'll listen to the Christian radio and this because sometimes I just don't even feel like connecting my Bluetooth. Like I'm too
right.
lazy to just take that 30 seconds to get my Bluetooth connected. Um, but like, yeah, I'll have the Christian radio stations on just because it's like a good default, but it's I get grieved, man, by some of the songs because like I'm just like I'd rather just be listening to a secular radio station because it
Right.
doesn't bother me as much. I mean, I like, you know, a lot of times worship songs will come on and I like that, but so many of this of just, you know, of songs that I hear that are just whatever. Again, I wouldn't want to call. I
It's
don't even think I could name names, but I hear a lot of songs where I just catch like a glimpse of it, and it's all about
yeah.
like my struggle and my suffering and like I get it, like there's real stuff. Like you want to write a song. I'm being so judgmental. You want to write a song out of what you're feeling and out of
Yeah.
like the realness of your heart and all that. But I just feel like the theology that's in a lot of stuff that I hear is
Honestly, if I'm being honest, it's less about theology, and some Christian music I don't like for the same reason I don't like Hallmark movies and all the Christmas Lifetime
cheesy.
silliness. Yeah, it's just I'm like, okay, like I get the heart and the sentiment, but I'm like I'm not feeling it that deeply right now, so I'm not connecting with this right now.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm just like I need to not, because I don't I don't want to start hating like the Christian, because I'm like it does a lot of good work though. Like it really connect. You always hear the testimonies
Yeah.
that they put on there. I'm like I've had those moments too, but for me this can't be the default when I get in my car because I'm gonna start to hate it. And for me, for me,
Just make up your own song, man. Just
yeah,
sing.
exactly.
Just get
Well,
in the
no,
car and sing your own song.
Spotify, but for me, like but then I like to your point, I would find that so like yeah, the radio personalities like sometimes it was that, but I think actually what bothers me more is usually certain songs would come on. I'm just like ugh, I can't do it. But again, there's a lot of great stuff, and so they're trying to hit a super broad audience.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
they're trying to have a lot of different things. And so it does come down to personal preference in the same way that I'll also listen to like college radio. And college radio, I love college radio. It's funny to me because it'll be whatever local college. And one college actually surprisingly plays mostly heavy music, which I'm a fan of. But then the other college, it all depends on what hour you sign up to. Like the DJ might just be like, because sometimes it'll be like, all right, this is like reggae like jams or something like that, and then other
Yeah.
ones
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
it'll be like Hindi Bollywood bops or something like that,
Dude,
and then
that's
the
cool.
next hour the next hour it'll be like all reggaeton, but like you'll catch it, and like sometimes it's like indie and random stuff.
Hmm.
So when you catch it on a good hour, you're like, man, I love, like I'm like listening with my phone, like looking up almost every artist, because I'm like, man, this is so good. But then the the inverse of that is it's college kids, and they are terrible radio hosts.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
usually it's like like the quality of the music is usually like inversely proportional to the quality of like the DJ. Like the worse the DJ is, usually the better the music is, in my opinion. So that's
Uh,
usually how that's been my experience with radio in general. But but yeah, but all that to say, to going back to what we were saying earlier, I also
Thank you, because I totally forgot what we were talking about. So I'm glad
yeah,
you brought us
I could
back.
bring it. Sometimes I just have to turn it off, and like sometimes that's because of disgust, or there's just nothing good on, and I'm tired of flipping through the radio, or I don't want to go through my phone while I'm driving. But sometimes I'll just turn it off, and you're just like, oh right, like silence. Like you can be
Yeah.
quiet, and not even, if I'm honest, not even making it. Everything is spiritual. I believe if you're a Christian, I think everything is spiritual,
Hmm.
but not even for spiritual intention. Just the quiet of your own thoughts, you know what I mean? And just like sometimes the escapism part of it is, it's not even like I'm running from connection with God, but sometimes we just don't want to deal with our own like thoughts and stuff. And
For
for
sure.
me, driving has always been a time to process. For some people it's the shower, because it's like there's nothing else going on and they're just quiet and they can't have their phones. um, but it's just a place where it's like an extended period of time where everything is just, I'm just thinking and I'm processing and I'm going through
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
um, so sometimes terrible radio, sometimes Christian radio for me is helpful and not in the way that they think it is. It's because I turn it off and I can actually be quiet in my own thoughts for once.
You should call in
But
with that testimony
yeah, be like, just want to while they're doing
during
their
testimony time.
while they're doing their annual drive for money for the year, I'll be like, here's my test. You guys make me turn off the radio. So God,
You guys have greatly impacted my life and my relationship with God because you make me want to not listen to you. It's terrible.
It is.
So like,
Sorry, radio.
All right. Do you think that we're going to be going to youth group in the metaverse at some point? Because I do.
Here's
put
the
that out
thing.
there. I'm not
Here's
saying
the
I
thing.
want it. I don't want it. I don't want
The
that at
more,
all.
the more article I saw about the
I think
metaverse,
there's
I
going to be
like
people that are all about that.
100%. And I think it's unfortunately, for the same reasons that other technology is addictive and explosive. It's because it's selfish. It's self-centered. I think it's designed to be self-centered because you're the consumer. And I meant to say this before. You were talking about the generations and and ministering to different generations. That I appreciated what the pandemic did for youth group, because and for church in general, I think, because it cut away all the noise and it gave you too much of something you like, which is you don't have anywhere else to go. All you have is your phone now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And constant connection and distraction, entertainment, and even connecting with your friends. And you realize it's like, all right, it's too much. I want to get back. I want to get back to school. I want to get back in person. I miss seeing my friends in person. And so when it first hit, we were on Zoom immediately. And we did other things through technology. And then it slowly started to die off, where it was kind of, even as engaging as it was, we would specifically have engaging content where they didn't just turn their camera off and listen like it's school time. It was just like, hey, let's try to create conversation. Yeah. But our attendance just, not quickly, but steadily went down. And as soon as we had the opportunity to be back in person, it was explosive in a good way. Everyone wanted to be back. Everyone was like, whatever protocols I need to do. Like, I just like we had to, it was the mask, it was the social distancing. We have table games like pool and ping pong that we usually have, like all of that was closed because we didn't want to have too many surfaces touched, and it didn't matter. Like, they just wanted to be back together. And so for the same reason, I'm like, I know it was just a whatever question, like about the metaverse, but like, I think that it goes back to like, if I want to get church how I want it, and I don't want to actually truly connect with people in a vulnerable way, or whatever, then yeah, like technology, like some people were very comfortable just being home, staying home, like lean into the introverted side of them. It becomes just content at that point. It becomes spiritual content that you consume. And even before COVID, we had the reality that church life, Christian life, can be very consumeristic in its approach. But I think COVID like really exposed that for exactly what it was. That like, oh yeah, like I could watch the most talented worship team. I could stream the service from this church or from that church through COVID, and like, man, that was amazing quality. That was amazing. The content was so good. Like, it was like, there's so many good things. And plenty of people did that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And some churches have amazing online congregational engagement where you're in the chat and you can, when you can't be there in person, and people consider themselves part of a church that they've never been to in person. And I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with that. But I think that there's plenty of people that are like, man, I miss my church family. I miss the community that I had previously. And if you find your community online, great. I would say that that's the community, regardless of where you find it, is a really important part of the church body. And so I don't want to shun technology for that reason. But I also know that, at least for right now, I'm dealing with the majority of in-person stuff. And so that's where I'm going to put my time and energy, is the in-person connections. And um, yes, there's digital parts of that. So I think that there will be like the metaverse, all that stuff. I think that there's going to be plenty of ways. I think there's always going to be people that are going to try to reach people in whatever context and be all things to all people, and there'll be a pocket for that, fully digital. But if I'm like
Yeah.
creating avatars for myself for the youth group I'm a part of, so I can look the coolest, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to be a hindrance probably to youth group. Um,
It's like,
but yeah, man.
yeah. It's like, this is my Moses avatar, or my whatever. Dude, I think and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm torn, because it's where we're going. It's where
Hmm.
society's going. Like, do you know what Decentraland is?
No, not
So it's
familiar.
basically, it's one of these ecosystems, in the metaverse,
Yeah.
and it's a big one. It's a popular one. They've got, the only reason I know about it is because I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole with like cryptocurrency,
Okay.
and so they have their native crypto token. They actually have two. They have a land token and a mana token, and so like it's this ecosystem where you can go in and you can own land. You can like purchase actual land, and then you can build on it, and so people go in as creators. But the reason I brought that up is because there's like, right now, there is a fully functioning casino, which I've never been in the metaverse, period. I should say that, because I'm just going based on things that I've
Yeah.
heard,
Same.
or learned about. So like, I don't even know how to get into the metaverse, to be honest with you, but I think it involves goggles. But there's this fully functioning casino where you can go and you can gamble and you can win money. Um, I guess in the form of cryptocurrency, you can win money, but it's like to the point where like they're actually hiring people in the real world to work in the casino,
Oh,
in the
wow.
metaverse. And so we're there now. and
Yeah.
and it's primitive in a sense. Like, when you look at the avatars, like, they don't look like real human people. It's not as realistic. But basically, the way that they build stuff through gaming engines and stuff like that, where these companies that have been doing this stuff for decades at this point, of like building games. And like, we know where games have gotten, as far as the realism and how in depth they go on detail and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
basically the same engine that allows people to be able to build in these universes, right? And
Hmm.
so it's but anyway, but there's the idea, like, you can go in, you can hang out with people, you can do different things, you can fly around if you want, like, you can do all this stuff, but it's like in the VR sort of
Right.
realm. So it's not
Yeah.
just like you controlling an avatar on your computer screen. It's like you're immersed in it. But like, where it's actually functioning and you can do things, like, I've heard people saying, like, you can go into comedy clubs and you can like do different things. Like, you can I was listening to this guy who was saying, like, he's a comedian, and he'll do stand up in the metaverse, and people will come in and hang out, and it's like they're what. And so I'm like,
That's
there's no
crazy.
way that that's not going to be church. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way, like, that people are going to have, you're going to have your metaverse campus pastor or
Right.
whatever, who's going to run that side of things, because there's going to be people. And
Yeah.
so again, like, I'm kind of torn on this, because I don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think that the further we go down, like you just said, the thing that COVID kind of did this past year, or past couple years, was like, we for many people, which is really good. I'm really glad that the way that it's worked out for you all is like the excitement of people to come back to church.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was the story across the board.
No.
There's definitely people
No.
who got lost along the way, and people
Yeah.
who said, well, I'm just going to keep doing this, I'm going to stay like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And the comfortability of being able to, yeah, as you said, just like, okay, well, I'm not really feeling what my pastor's preaching about right now, so let me hop into Hillsong in London, or let me hop
Yeah.
into whatever.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to do that, to church hop from a metaverse, like, just walk through a portal and now you're like in a church in Australia, like,
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the accessibility of doing these things, I think there's definitely going to be people that embrace that. I'm wondering if it's something that we should embrace or not embrace. I again, like, because I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I think that this human contact and real connection is it's so important. The amount of I had a guest on a little while back, Dr. Joseph Capps, who does a lot of like grief counseling, and
Hmm.
he's worked for years and helps people through tragedy, and deals with people who are struggling with suicidality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he gave the numbers. I wish I remember what they were, of just the increase of suicide, suicidality, the way that it increased due to during the time of lockdowns and stuff like that.
Yeah,
There's
for
so much
sure.
of our health, not just mental but physical as well, that's connected to our relationships and to our ability to interact and have like the warmth of a
Hmm.
hug, stuff like that, that's so important. And I never
Yeah.
ever want us to lose that.
Right.
It just seems like I've been getting, like, to be honest with you, I'm not like afraid, but I am like a little bit nervous because I see where things are going, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
just crazy.
I think we'll have to. Well, I mean, the reality is, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Someone
Yeah,
will.
for sure, for sure.
Like, and so that's always been the reality, and maybe the plight, but also just the comfort level um, of anybody. Like, there's gonna be like-minded people that are gonna connect in the same ways that you connect, and there's gonna be communities that are similar or like-minded. And with
Yeah,
technology, it's easier to connect with those same people. You're not restricted by just geographic location, um, and and I think that technology and all the algorithms help that echo chamber happen.
yeah,
But just like with any technology, it's not evil in and of itself. It's how we use it, and that and that's why people really started to question certain algorithm things, to say like, well, is this really good? Like, yes, we have the ability to give you all the content you want, but is it good that you only ever see the content that we know you're gonna already like?
right.
Um, because where does growth happen? Where does And so that's, I mean, you could apply the same thing when it comes to sound bites and clips and sermon content. That if you're only ever fed things that are just generally encouraging, yes, biblical and scriptural, and some people are able to avoid um, conviction. Sometimes they're able to
Yeah,
avoid things that are speaking against the sin that they deal with, or things that can be challenging, um, and that might be more so to do with an algorithm than their own intention. But yeah, I think the reality is people are going to reach people wherever they are. They're gonna capitalize, and they're gonna leverage whatever's there. There was that movie a number of years ago. I never actually saw, if I'm honest, but it was just called Ready Player One. I think is what it was
hmm,
called, and that was the whole idea,
yeah,
is that there was stuff happening in this VR world that was, I believe, like really an actual crisis, and it was affecting things in the real world. And um, movies like that are always they're not just crazy sci-fi. It's like, well, here's the logical progression of things,
right,
and it's sci-fi
yeah,
because it's not right now, but like, here's how it could go. And it's no
hmm,
surprise when some of the sci-fi things start to happen in real life. um, but yeah, any of that VR stuff, like, it was like, it's going to become more and more engaging, and it's going to become more and more immersive, and and you could get so immersive that uh, I think you have the potential to, like any technology or anything, like, you could use it as an escape. It could be something that's addictive, it could be something that's just for fun and sometimes and entertaining. And then um like people did, like when it was us, like Sims was a thing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Sims, or
yeah,
even like the easier version, like Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like, I'm going to build my own theme park and I got to keep everyone happy. But Sims, or on The Office, it was Second Life. It was
Second Life,
Dwight.
yep,
Dwight got depressed and like really leaned into his Second Life on, and and I don't think that people only do that when they're hurt or want to escape, but when
hmm,
you are hurt and want to escape, like, it makes you want to do that more. And the reality is, like, you could be part of an online church and community, or not even church, but just any kind of community, and really feel connected there. And you could work online, like, your entire life could be there. But at some point, you have to disconnect, you know what I mean? At some point you have
yeah,
to disengage
yeah,
technologically. And if there's too much of a divide or schism between who I am in this, or like there's like that kind of that dualism, like, or duality, I mean, that like, man, this doesn't connect, this there's no overlap
Yeah,
here, and it can really cause
but
a big problem.
but don't you think there's going to be a bunch of people that like that becomes their real life, like that
Yeah.
becomes the thing? Because again,
Yeah. Yes.
you can own land, you can own real estate, you can build a house, you can essentially live there, and you'd have to come out every once in a while because you can't eat virtually.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think, yeah, like you can go to, I don't know how that would be reconciled because I'm sure you could go to a virtual Subway or something, but you can't actually, your avatar consuming food is not gonna feed you in the real world. So there's gonna be something where I feel like we're still gonna be connected on some level, but there's gonna be people that like they can build the world that they want,
Hmm.
and if their world out here has been disappointing or, you know, whatever, there's going to be people that just want to live that disconnected
Yeah.
world where they feel connected to people, where maybe, you know, they've got relationships in there
Yeah.
with people that, or they've met people in there, you know what I mean, that they've never met in real life, they've never seen in real life, they just know the avatar. And so I mean, it's because kids will already, kids that are very into gaming culture and stuff like that, like they'll spend more money like on dressing their outfitting their avatar with like sneakers
Oh
and
yeah,
like
yeah,
cool
yeah.
jackets and stuff like that than they will spend on actual clothes in the real world, because there's something about just that social clout or whatever,
Hmm.
that like the whole, you know, phone thing with followers and Facebook and Twitter and the different communities that we've had was sort of the precursor to, you know, where it's going now. So I just think that there's going to be people that get so immersed in it that they'll they'll probably still have to come out every once in a while, but it's going to kind of be like, oh, I got to go to the real world now. Like, you
Like
know
the
what I
food
mean?
store.
Instead
Yeah.
of, yeah,
Yeah. Right.
like, oh, I got to go do this, whatever.
Right.
And, but their real life, they've got money in the metaverse. They've got, you know, all this stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
I think. Yeah.
it
I
just
think it
doesn't
could
seem like
easily.
it's going to slow down. You know,
No,
I
and it
wish that
can.
we were mature enough to just every once in a while, like if I can't go to church today for whatever reason, like if I'm out of town, I'm on vacation or something like that, and I can't go to church today, like, you know what? I've got my cool, like, I've got my Oculus or whatever. I've got
Yeah.
my glasses and I can put them on and I can attend my church service and it's like I'm there.
Yeah.
But then but that's the extent of it. And then next Sunday I'll be back in church with everybody else. You know, if we could do this in and out thing where and but I don't know. I just think
It
that
to
they're
I
gonna
guess
make
to
stuff
me,
cooler and cooler, and it's gonna be tough for a lot of people to.
I think yes, and it can be fully immersive, and the same way like you could run into someone in real life at the food store, and someone could be like treated badly, and they could be like, "Do you have any idea who I am in the metaverse?" Like, no, like I don't know, like what. Um,
Dude,
but like, and
I'm
they could
sure that
be
already
really
happens, like
well. It already happens.
with
Like you run into a
just at a
TikToker.
basic level.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
you're
Like,
like, "Do you know who that
I
is?"
don't have
Like,
to
I'm
listen to this
TikTok
dude.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, and
I
that's
got
why like
300,000 followers. Who are you? Yeah.
it's all relative. It's all relative to your own experience. It's all relative to, and that's ultimately
Yeah,
the
man.
number one thing, whether it's life digital or not, is that like, what's my intention? What's my goal? Like, what's my motivation? And like, like, why am I even doing this? And if it's all for self, it's going to be empty. And so you could build an
Mm,
amazing life online. You could build an amazing life in real life. And if it's just about stuff and clout and social status and all that other stuff, I remember working at a restaurant and some guy was asking me if I liked my job and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if it was like a business lunch. There was a bunch of other guys there. And I don't know if he was just like day drinking like on lunch, or if he was like just really extroverted, but he just like, everyone was like, dude, chill out. But he was just like, hey, like what, ask me about my job, ask me about if I enjoy it, and just like life and satisfaction, like talking about like life and satisfaction. And he basically says during a busy lunch hour that like, I've got this job and this business or whatever and this whatever. And like he's basically saying in front of everyone and to random stranger, like, I'm unhappy.
yeah.
I'm not happy. And so like I don't really care if it's online or not. Like whatever life you're creating for yourself or that you're just letting happen around you, whether you're proactive with it or not, um, are are you actually connected to real meaning and joy and purpose? And as a pastor and as a Christian, I'm always going to say like that's only in relationship with Jesus. Like all that other stuff is meaningful and important, but like real life and real connection, real community is going to happen because of
Mm,
Jesus. And yes,
yeah.
you might find that community online, and there can be like absolute value there, but your life is never going to be 100% digital. Um, so what if you're like, what does it matter if you are important or a great connector? What if you're a pastor on in the metaverse or you're a Christian influencer in the metaverse, but then you
Dude,
go
you
to the
could
store and you're a
fly between, like,
yeah,
you know?
but then you go to the food store and you're a jerk, or you don't talk to her, or don't care about the
Yeah,
person
man.
checking like
Yeah.
at the checkout line. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
um it's we're always going to be challenged by like where our heart is really at and what our where our treasure is really stored. And so whether it's physical, real life, or digital, like
Yeah.
yeah, it is inevitable. It's going to get more, and like I don't know if it's going to become the Ready Player One. I don't know if it's going to become like Wally, where it's like everyone's like fat and on a spaceship and
Yeah.
hands given whatever they want to eat whenever they want to eat it, and they don't have bone mass anymore because they don't exercise and have seen a real plant. But I don't know. That's always the exaggeration, but it's always the exaggeration of it's a caricature of real life. And so yeah, technology is going to keep doing its thing, and it could become more and more and more dangerous. But you don't have to look future; you can look right now. Like how addicted am I to my phone? Um, how because you and I are part of a generation that I guess it's because we're elder millennials. I know Gen X talk about the same thing. I think one of my older sisters is technically Gen X, but
Mm.
to have been born with some technology, but just seen it advance the way it did, where like yeah, we had a home computer, but it wasn't engaging enough to want to be on it 24/7. Like instead it was video
Right.
games. Like it was,
Yeah.
and so like the advent
Oregon
of
Trail and stuff.
yeah, right, pinball, whatever game is just preloaded on your computer.
Yeah.
Um, but we really saw it just explode. And I didn't have a smartphone until I was like, I don't even know. Like I was a full on adult in life and didn't
Oh,
have a
yeah.
smartphone for
Oh,
a
yeah.
while. And I got a cell phone when I was a senior in high school. And even then it was phone calls only. Texting was too expensive because it was 10 cents to send one and 5 cents to receive it. Um,
Dude.
and all
Dial-up
that's
internet.
oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it took forever to stream a song. Yeah,
Yeah.
streaming a song took like
Napster.
3 hours. Yeah, all that stuff. So we saw it
Yeah,
like take
downloading
off.
music. That was
Yeah.
crazy.
So we saw a lot of shift happen culturally. But like when you're especially when you're young, you just kind of go with the flow. But everybody does. Everyone adapts if you want to, because like our parents, like our grandparents, like my grandpa doesn't have a Facebook account, you know what I mean? But like all my aunts and uncles do, and I think his sister does, and he's 93. And smartphones, like if you want to go with the flow, like you can take advantage of it and use it however you
Mhm.
want. Um, but it's for them, it was different. For me, like I spent too much time on Nintendo and Sega and PlayStation or watching TV. Like my parents would kick me outside, like go outside. And I appreciated that
Yeah.
because it made me do something different. It made me use my creativity more, or like go play sports or go make up a game outside. And um, there's always going to be the need to self-regulate, and we're always going to need accountability. We're
Mm.
always going to need other people to help us when we're having a hard time self-regulating. And so no matter what technology does or zero technology at all, um,
Yeah.
we're selfish. And
Yeah.
so
Wow.
uh, it's gonna be tricky, man. I think in the metaverse you're gonna have pastors that are challenging their people to go connect in real life also, on top of
Yeah.
their meta youth group and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I I do think that we definitely can't, like, blame our tendencies and addictions and stuff like that on the technology itself. Because ultimately, I think more than anything, the technology and the access to the phones, like the things that we're talking about, which, we're talking about them in a somewhat, I guess the negative effects that they have. But of course, like there's ways in which they enhance our lives as well. I mean,
100%.
we're
Yeah.
doing this over technology right
Right.
now,
Yeah.
and you know,
We didn't have to
there's
we didn't have to create a studio and sit in the same room
yeah.
and record it and then
I didn't have to
publish it
like buy
later.
you a plane ticket to fly to my living
Right.
room so that we could do
Exactly.
this. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It could,
it's amazing and it's great. But like I do think
it can also
yeah,
make
like
destructive
as you
things
said,
easier too.
yeah, for sure. And more than anything, I think that the bad things, the bad behaviors, and the things that we do with it, I don't think that we can necessarily blame
Hmm.
the technology on that. I think that those are decisions that we make, and more than anything, I think it exposes those things. Like
Yeah.
you called it selfishness, those areas of our heart or whatever. Maybe that there's a desire to hide, and again, it makes it easier. And I think more so if you grew up with it, and you know you didn't have really any other option, or you weren't aware of any other option. You just kind of grew up with the technology in your hands all the time, and screens, and you know
Hmm.
your parents just like handed you a screen because they didn't want to deal with you or
Yeah.
that sounded bad, but
Mm.
like you know
It's
I
true.
do that, my wife and I do that like
Like,
not because
just
we don't
watch a
want to
show.
deal with you, but just like you're bit like I work from home, I do stuff, and it's like yeah, you can, yeah, go ahead, you can go ahead, you can watch the TV, go ahead, you can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you know, but it's that kind of stuff that, you know, when you grow up with it and it's always there, I think maybe there's a little bit more of an excuse. I think that whatever, maybe it goes both ways, but ultimately, I don't think that it's technology's fault that we're, you know, disconnecting from people and from relationships and things like that. Not that everybody's doing that, but you know,
Hmm.
for those that are doing that, or if we see those tendencies within ourselves. But I do think that there is just something that is so amazing, and something that I mentioned to our people on a regular basis, just because it often comes up in my mind and in my heart because I think it's such a big deal, is going outside of your comfort zone, like stepping outside of just what's easy and convenient and comfortable for the
Hmm.
sake of having a connection with somebody, for the sake of
Yeah.
relationship, for the
Right.
sake of fellowship. Like I know, like we've made it available. Like I know that our you know church people and um, most churches now probably can consume the church service online and they can do it that way, but like that's not the ultimate goal. That's there for someone who just doesn't have another option,
Yeah.
you know, maybe someone who can't leave the home because of an illness or something like that, or you know whatever it might be. Those options are there, those options are good, those options are helpful, um, and that's why we do it. But you know, to use it as an excuse to say, well, I don't have to connect, I don't have to go to that next level, I don't have to build
Yeah.
relationship, like okay, but you're missing the point of what the church is supposed to be about,
Yeah.
grand scale, right? Like
Right.
um there is no problem. You mentioned earlier that you know you don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with like, oh, like I want to see this worship service online and I want to do this and get this thing, and there's not. But the only time that becomes bad is when we do allow that to become a form of escape from having to actually connect and engage with people on a personal level,
Yeah.
because so much of our growth takes place there, and it's
Yeah.
so easy to hide. um it's just
Yeah.
like it's so easy to not be honest with people and to
Yeah.
not share your feelings and not share your heart and not open up and do those things
Right.
when there's separation like that due
Well,
to
and that's, you're right, because tech, like in the simplest sense, technology, not even like digital, like even just mechanical technology, like levies and like technology is meant to make life easier, and
Mhm.
and it can make life easier in so many good ways. It can also make sinning easier. It can also make isolation easier. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because you could be in church in person every week and still be self-centered and consumeristic about it. You could be in church every week and never engage in actual community. Like you can be in
Oh,
real
yeah.
life in church every week and never
Come
be
on.
held accountable by anybody or contribute anything or serve or be a part of a group where you actually share life with anybody. Um, and so digitally, it would just be that much easier to not do any of those things too. But for someone who's actually hungry and is looking for actual community and all these different things, technology can also help them accomplish that in ways that maybe they
Yeah.
couldn't do it before. So yeah, I don't think I think to your point, like technology is going to make anything easier. But because we have a sin nature, a self-centered nature, more like too many times it's making destructive or selfish things easier because our goal becomes in intentionally or not, our goal can become like our own comfort.
Comfort. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like, okay, church, yeah, use technology to the fullest. However, my goal isn't to make everything as easy as possible for everyone. My goal is to use technology to make the things that we need to do
Mm.
easier, because if the goal is just to make everything easier and life not hard, then we're not going to be very good Christians, because we were promised hardship. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm never confronted with an uncomfortable situation of like expressing or sharing my faith or being put on the spot, if
Yeah.
I'm never
Yeah.
dealt with temptation to the point that I'm going to actually overcome it, yeah, it's
Come on.
so anyway, I've got no real beef with technology in and of itself, except for the fact that it can make destructive things just way too easy. And so
Mm.
that's the problem there. But because yeah, when I look at the same sins that were around before technology are around today,
Come on.
they're just easier to get to, easier to find, because of technology. And there's nothing actually new under the sun, even if that
Yeah.
sun is a digital sun in your metaverse. But same sin, same sin.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Well, on that note, um, yeah, man. No, but thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for letting.
yeah, man.
I didn't know where that conversation was gonna go, but thank you for allowing me to. I don't know. Like I feel like the one thing that makes me nervous, I guess, is the that if it goes that far to where it's more important to win, like where the metaverse is like winning, like
Mm.
when you own stuff in there and you do all that. That's the only place that kind of makes me nervous as someone who really like I want to like I want to hold on to this world. Like I
Oh
want to
well,
hold on to real life and outside and stuff like that. But like I just wonder, like I don't know. And I hope it doesn't get there, but like is my real estate, which I don't even own any real estate right now, but I plan to, like is my real estate in this real world going to be going to decrease in value as the metaverse increases in value, because that becomes the thing where there's more draw and stuff like that. Like
mm. Yeah,
there's all these different like rabbit holes that I could go down, like whatever. But that's kind of the thing that just has me like I hope not. Like I hope we can use it as something to enhance life.
yeah,
But you know what I mean? I just think that the tendency of a lot of people tends to be to take things further than they should, right? We tend
right.
to we tend to take things further than we should, often to our own detriment. And I'm just
Yeah,
talking, humanity in general. And
because the
so I don't know.
reality is like what we actually want, whether anyone ever realizes it in their life or not, what you actually want is like the fullness and the completeness that only God can offer, and as we stand right now, that can only happen in eternity. Like what we want is the fullness and the joy and the completeness of being fully restored. So even in life now, we chase things that are a shadow of what God has,
Mm,
and even the best things that we can accomplish as in relationship with God is still not even the fullness of what He had intended and what we will have someday in eternity. And so even if you create a metaverse or an online thing that doesn't have any more tears or sorrow or death or disease, like that's still just a shadow of what we want,
oh,
what we truly want, which we're going to get with Jesus in the new heaven, the new earth,
mm,
and eternity with Him. All of that was His intention, and everything else
dude.
that we do is us striving for that. So
There's a movie like that, and I can't remember what it's called, and I'm pretty sure the movie it's weird. the it, it's a movie that I believe was made in Russia. It's not even an American made movie, and so it was like dubbed. So when I
Got
saw
it.
the movie,
Got
it
it.
was a good movie in terms of the way that it looked visually. It was a really stunning movie, but you always lose something between the
Yeah.
languages, and so it was just like it was dubbed over in English. And I might be mixing this up with a different movie too. I'm pretty sure this is the movie I'm talking about, where like that's what it was. People were living in this sort of like digital age where they were like literally, I think in the real world, kind of like Matrix style, they were hooked up to
Got
some
it.
kind of thing, or they were
Yeah.
put into some kind of prolonged form of sleep. And it was almost like a dream world, but it
Wow.
was real. It was built by people. I don't know. I don't
Right.
remember everything about it, but it was crazy. But like in this metaverse, if you will, like the goal they were trying to get to heaven, and they had
Oh
actually
wow.
built heaven. Like they had built a heaven, and basically it was, I think it was almost like this cult. It turned into this sort of very dystopian sort of a thing where there's like this
Yeah.
cult leader kind of a person who had built this like heaven as like, there was like this bridge to heaven that they were trying to get to, and it was like essentially his way of controlling people. And I was
Wow.
just like, yo, that's too, like that's too much.
Yeah.
That's too
Well, you
much,
know it's
because
gonna happen.
that there's going to be
Yeah.
people that are trying to
Yep.
control stuff to that point. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me
Yeah,
like
man.
nervous. But anyway.
Same. Same.
But yeah, dude. Well, thank you, man. Thanks for letting me go to a dark place today and
Yeah.
helping me out of it. Every time you kept being encouraging. You were like, yeah, but yeah,
But
and
Jesus, man.
you kept trying to bring me out of it. I super
Uh,
appreciate it.
yeah, man. For sure. Yeah, glad to
How's
be a part of it.
did you guys have a good Christmas and New
Yeah,
Year, and
man.
how's
Good
everything all
Christmas, good all that
so far for
stuff.
you?
Again, real life includes COVID, obviously, as we all are dealing with. So I think everywhere we saw like outbreaks and stuff, but we were able to. Ironically, it was for the past couple of years we had gotten sick like around Thanksgiving or Christmas. Just there's always that seasonal sickness, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
managed to dodge that this year. We didn't see everybody at Christmas because of COVID, I think, um, but yeah, so I think we still have some gifts to exchange technically on my side of
Wow.
the family. Um, Secret Santa didn't happen yet, but yeah, it was good. My nephew Jonathan, who's in the military, he was home, so it was really good to see him. And then we got to go visit with some friends for New Year's. Um, so because it fell on a weekend, so I kind of had the doesn't always happen. I had the week between Christmas and New Year's off, so it was a nice
Sweet.
break. Hit the reset button, and I'm glad that our church is doing like a intentional like fast and focused time into the new year. And yeah, man, looking to get all that started. But how about you guys? Same. I saw a lot of Nerf in your Christmas, so you some Nerf battles.
Lots of Nerf, dude. Yeah, because we bought them some Nerf guns, and then found out that my mom had already bought them Nerf guns, and so we were like, should I return some stuff? And then we were like, no, let's just do it. So they've got an arsenal now,
Yeah,
and we
that's
bought
awesome.
hundreds of darts. And so yeah, Christmas Day we were definitely outside. We had a Nerf war. It was a beautiful day, Christmas Day here, and it wasn't cold.
Yeah.
And yeah, they got some walkie talkies too, so they were
What?
like on a team with the walkies. They
Yeah,
started getting in the way because it's hard to hold, like we each had two guns, and then they were trying to do the walkie talkie thing, and they kept dropping them, so they eventually abandoned that.
yeah.
um
Got to get
but
them like
yeah,
the headsets.
yeah, right, for real. Yeah, there you go. What? COVID? Yeah. So, but so it was fun. Yeah, we had we were able to take I don't remember how many days off I was able to take. Took at least a couple of days off, and yeah, I hadn't been into
Nice.
video games in a long time, but I was telling you, like I started playing some video games with the kids, and
Yeah,
um kind of like feeling those tendencies to
yeah,
get too involved in it, and kind of
yep,
regulating myself. It's like I'll play, I'll play every other day, or I'll
yeah.
play couple times a week, because yeah. I
It's
hadn't
tough,
been
man.
into video games in a long time, but for some reason over Christmas break had some time off, and
Yeah,
we got into couple of games. And
yeah. We had actually
anyway,
hooked up my old Sega Genesis in my son's room, so we
dude,
we
that's
played some
great.
random. Yeah, so that was fun because you can't get too. There's not too many layers in that
Yeah,
one. But then when we were
yeah.
away for New Year's, they had just gotten for Christmas a Nintendo Switch. So I was into like Mario Kart, and I was like, oh
That's
man,
great,
it's
man.
all coming right back. Like all that stuff. Like
Mario is like, you can't beat it. Like for some, you can't do better than Mario. Like,
yeah,
that is the reason why like I want to get a Switch, is because I want to
yeah,
have Mario.
all the Mario stuff.
Um,
Yeah,
we had my mom mailed me my old Super Nintendo, but I can't get it to work. I can't get it to power on.
I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some YouTube videos on how to restore your old consoles and stuff like that.
I could just buy one. They're not even that expensive. Like you can get them now for I think like 70 or 80 bucks or something like
Well,
that.
you can
So
get them. You can get the what I actually have in the youth room. Actually, it's in my office right now. It's a tiny.
oh, a mini.
It's a yeah.
That's crazy.
It's Super Nintendo. So they actually have all like I don't know how many games preloaded. So we have that up in the youth room. But
Dude.
so yeah, so you don't have to blow on the cartridges and all that stuff. So it's a little bit easier, I guess.
That's so much better.
Yeah,
Um although there's some comfort in that, where like you, if something goes wrong, it's comforting to know like all you have to do is either like you've got two things. You blow in it, you blow in the cartridge, then you blow inside the little thing, and then you can kind of like slap the sides of the console a little bit. And usually between those three things, you can always get your game to come back on.
yeah,
There's
right.
something
Now if something
comforting in
goes
that.
down, if it goes down, it's probably fried
Yeah,
and
if you
you lost
scratch
all
your
your
CD,
progress.
if it's a CD, or if it's
Yeah,
like,
that's true, man.
most of the time it's not even that anymore. It's mostly just downloaded from the internet. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, corrupted file. Oh, it's over.
yeah, right. There
Anyway,
goes the metaverse.
don't suck me back into that conversation, Dan. I
Sorry.
need to detox from that a little bit. But the moral of the story is, everybody, keep your real world relationships and connections strong. Keep
Yeah,
them
man.
going. Like it's crazy. Like for real, it has gotten um too easy for us. And I know a lot of people, like probably the majority of people that are going to hear this, probably doesn't even apply to them. Like you probably love your real world connections, and and you like hanging out with people in relationships. But
Yeah,
there can be, even just with the busyness of life and the things that we have in place to make our lives easier, it can be so easy to forego a certain level of connection in the name of, oh well, I have work to do, or I have
yeah,
to do this, or I have to, whatever it might be. And I just think that that willingness to sometimes sacrifice what comes easy to us
right.
for the sake of hanging out with a friend, again, like you said, not even the quote unquote like has to be spiritual all the time, but just building relationships and connections with people that are close to you and important to you, friends, family, church family. It's
Yeah, it's
big
good,
deal.
man. That's true. That's what it's about.
So thanks, man. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
yeah, my pleasure
Appreciate
for
you.
sure. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks for
thanks
having me on.
everybody for taking the time to check out this episode, watching or listening, however you checked it out. I don't think any of this, well, some of what Dan said was probably encouraging. I don't think I said anything encouraging today, but if it encouraged you or blessed you or anything like that, if you would like to subscribe or share or leave a review, I'd greatly appreciate that. So yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good one. See you next time. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Thanks for having me.